applicable to all states in the region without exception, in accordance with relevant international resolutions. We also stress the need for all Middle Eastern countries to join the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons as a step toward regional and global security. We emphasize the paramount importance of protecting civilians and civilian infrastructure, including in the context of cross-border strikes and retaliatory actions, and as well as refraining from targeting nuclear facilities that are under International Atomic Energy Agency safeguards, in line with relevant IAEA resolutions and the United Nations Security Council decisions. The A3 reaffirms its commitment to multilateralism and the principles of the United Nations Charter. We urge all parties to act with responsibility and wisdom, placing the well-being of the region's people above all other considerations. It's important to seize this moment to redouble our efforts for de-escalation and to support a diplomatic process that can deliver peace, stability, and security for all states in the Middle East. The A3 stands ready to support all efforts within this Council and in cooperation with regional and international partners to facilitate a peaceful, inclusive, and lasting resolution to the situation in the Middle East. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Somalia for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Panama.
Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. President. We thank your presidency for convening this meeting, and we acknowledge the presence of the representatives of the countries that are honoring us with their participation. We would also like to thank the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, for his briefing at this meeting. Less than a year ago, we were in this same chamber deliberating on similar events to those that are of concern to us at this meeting. And these are events that today are still developing, which prevents us from entirely knowing their scope and their consequences. However, we must ask ourselves whether the repetition of these actions can really lead to different results and to a sustainable solution, or whether, on the contrary, the aggressive cycle of attacks and counterattacks will only lead to an escalation of violence with increasingly serious and unpredictable consequences to the detriment of international peace and security. Let us recall that in January we considered the brutal and disproportionate use of force by Iran against its population, which was legitimately exercising its right to protest. According to estimates from independent media and non-governmental organizations, that resulted in the deaths of thousands of people. These previous facts point to a delicate situation in the country and the region, and they represent a clear and worrying warning of the possible real and human consequences of the escalation of the armed conflict. The Republic of Panama notes with grave concern the severity of recent events, which could trigger a regional conflict with serious direct repercussions on neighboring countries, such as those that have just been suffered by Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, which Panama considers to be lamentable. This scenario must be avoided, especially in a context in which the Middle East has already been seriously affected by various crises in recent years, the consequences of which may transcend and cause harm beyond the immediate region and may affect the rest of the world with incalculable consequences. The intensification of tensions will only increase instability and suffering, particularly impacting the most vulnerable populations, those that are always the first to suffer the consequences of conflicts. In this uncertain and dangerous situation that we face, we are reminded that it is essential to guarantee the respect for and protection of the civilian population during conflict in accordance with international humanitarian law and the values that this Council is called upon to protect. Therefore, we reiterate our urgent call for dialogue, restraint, and the cessation of the use of force. Diplomacy and negotiation, in accordance with the principles enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations and international law, must prevail as the preferred and effective means for the peaceful settlement of disputes. Thank you very much.
The representative of Panama for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Latvia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to begin by thanking the United Kingdom as presidency of this Council for convening this meeting on such short notice. And I would also like to thank the Secretary General for the briefing provided. For decades, Iran has been a malign, destabilizing actor in the region and beyond. It has repeatedly and systematically violated its international obligations and posed a threat to international peace and security. The Iranian regime has attacked and destabilized neighbors, exported terrorism, developed an illegal ballistic missile program, and participated in widespread sanctions circumvention. Iran has violated UN Security Council resolutions 1696, 1737, 1747, 1803, 1835, 1929, and this aggressive behavior is consistent. It spans decades. While international law must be respected at all times, the Iranian regime has continuously ignored its responsibilities and binding commitments under the JCPOA and NPT. The regime has openly maintained its illegal nuclear program, despite repeated and genuine diplomatic engagement from the European Union, the UK, and the US. The IAEA Board of Governors has confirmed over the last 8 months that Iran is failing to engage and to grant monitors access to installations. And this is unacceptable. Iran must cease its illegal nuclear program, comply with its international obligations, and return to the negotiating table. For decades, Iran has maintained terror as its modus operandi. Iran has supported, armed, financed, and trained terrorist groups such as Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. It has enabled and emboldened attacks against countries near and afar. It has caused the death of thousands of civilians. It has promoted radicalization and the spread of terrorism, and undermined global energy and maritime security. Beyond the Middle East, Iran has directly supported Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. More than 50,000 of the same Iranian Shahed drones, now striking numerous countries in the Middle East, have been transferred by Iran to Russia. Iranian weapons, Iranian technology have contributed to killing thousands of innocent Ukrainians, and like Russia in Ukraine, Iran is now bringing terror to innocent civilians in the Gulf countries. Latvia stands with the brave people of Iran, brave people that have endured so much, decades of brutality and repression. Recently, this Council met to address the atrocities perpetrated by the Islamic regime against its own people in the streets of Iran. Latvia and the European Union have already imposed sanctions against the IRGC. The Iranian people must be able to determine their own future, free from violence and repression. Mr. President, Latvia joins the call for an immediate cessation of hostilities and urgent de-escalation. We call on all sides to protect civilians and avoid further escalation. Latvia condemns the unprovoked Iranian strikes against countries in the region, namely our fellow member of the Council, Bahrain, and Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. Strikes on these countries constitute a threat to regional and international peace and security, and we stand in solidarity with our partners. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Latvia for the statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as a representative of the United Kingdom. I thank the Secretary General for his briefing. Colleagues, this is a fragile moment for the Middle East. The United Kingdom played no role in the strikes against Iran. But we are under no illusion about the nature of the Iranian regime. The Iranian regime has murdered thousands of its own people simply for exercising their fundamental rights and freedoms. Iran has repeatedly ignored calls to find a durable and acceptable solution to the nuclear issue, while continuing to destabilize the region through its support to proxies and partners. We strongly condemn Iranian strikes across the region, including the attacks on a hotel in Dubai, the attack on Kuwait's civilian airport, and attacks on civilian targets in Bahrain. We extend our support and solidarity to all our partners, many of which are not parties to the conflict. Regional stability remains a priority. As my Prime Minister stated, UK forces are active and British planes are in the sky today as part of coordinated regional defensive operations to protect our people and regional partners, as the United Kingdom has done before and in line with international law. Reports of strikes on civilians and civilian infrastructure are deeply alarming. The protection of civilians and full respect for international law is critical. Iran must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. That is why we, alongside our French and German partners, have continually supported efforts to reach a negotiated solution. We have always been clear that only a diplomatic solution can fully and sustainably address these threats. We want to see the swiftest possible resolution that ensures security and stability for the region. Iran must refrain from further strikes and its appalling behavior to allow a path back to diplomacy. We will continue to work with our partners to this end in support of peace and security and the protection of civilian life across the region. I resume my function as President of the Council. I now give the floor to the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
In the name of God, the compassionate and merciful, we appreciate the Secretary General for his briefing and his contribution to this meeting. We express our sincere appreciation to the Russian Federation and China for supporting the convening of this emergency meeting of the Security Council to address the manifest aggression committed by the United States and Israeli regime. I also thank those council members, in particular China, Pakistan, and the Russian Federation, who have today taken principled position in condemnation this unlawful act. And it is regrettable that some members of this body, in a blatant double standard, disregarded the flagrant act of aggression committed by the US and Israel on Iran and condemn Iran for using its inherent right to self-defense on the UN Charter. Mr. President, this morning the United States regime jointly and in coordination with the Israeli regime initiated an unprovoked and premeditated aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran for the second time in the recent months, while deliberately attacking civilian populated areas in multiple large cities of Iran where millions of people reside. As a result of this brutal armed attack, hundreds of civilians have been killed and injured. The aggression and atrocious crime of the United States regime and the Israeli regime and the deliberate and persistent targeting of civilian infrastructure are going. In addition to the numerous civilian residential buildings, the aggressors have also targeted a school in the city of Minab, Hormozgan province, killing more than 100 children. The number of innocent civilians continues to rise. This is not only an act of aggression, it is a war crime and a crime against humanity. Yet today, once again, the representative of the United States, through a regrettable pattern, has attempted to distort facts and rely on misinformation to justify the blatant aggression of the United States and Israel against my country. The facts, however, are unequivocal. The justification advanced by the representative of the United States today are illegal and entirely devoid of legal foundation. The baseless allegation invoked to defend this unlawful use of force have no standing under international law. The invocation of preemptive attack claims of imminent threats or other substantiated political claims cannot legitimize aggression. Such claims are unfounded legally, morally, and politically, and they contradicted the clear principles of the Charter of the United Nations. I also categorically reject the assertion made by the representative of France, the United Kingdom, and certain other Western members regarding Iran's peaceful nuclear program. These claims lack a factual and legal basis. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of the Israeli regime have openly claimed responsibility for this act of aggression and have explicitly articulated regime change as their objective, an unmistakable admission of their intent to violate Iran's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The President of the United States has falsely described this aggression as necessary to neutralize an imminent threat to the American people. This is nothing more than a deliberate attempt to mislead the international community and the U.S. public opinion and manufacture consent for unlawful war. Similarly, the representative of the United States has cynically sought to mislead this Council, yet history provides ample documentation that the foreign policy of the United States has repeatedly relied on unlawful force, covert intervention, and political manipulation to alter the governments of other member states. This record is well established. The reality is clear and undeniable. What is taking place today against my country by the United States and the terrorist regime of Israel is a blatant act of aggression, a full-fledged violation of international law. No justification, no accusation, no narrative of disinformation can legitimize or excuse this manifest crime and aggression. Mr. President, we have communicated on several occasions with this Council and the Secretary General about warmongering statements and interfering actions in the internal affairs of Iran by the President of the U.S. in a blatant violation of the UN Charter and international law, and called for the Council action. Regrettably, all were unanswered. The issue before the Council is straightforward. Whether any member state may, including a permanent member of this Council, through the use of force, coercion, or aggression, determine the political future of another state or impose control over its affairs. International law and the Charter are explicit on this matter. Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the Charter categorically prohibits the threats of use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. Mr. President, against this backdrop, I would like to make the following points. 1. What is occurring against my country is a clear act of aggression. It is an open armed aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran. The United States and Israel war today is not merely a war against Iran. It is a war against the Charter of the United Nations, a war against international law, and a war against the international legal order upon which the United Nations and the Security Council have been built for over 8 decades. As the Charter affirms, the United Nations was established to save succeeding generations from a scourge of war. The Charter, adopted in 1945, is founded upon this fundamental principle. Members shall refrain from threat or use of force in international relations. The sole exception is the inherent right of self-defense under Article 51, and only in the event of an armed attack. The military aggression carried out by the United States and Israel satisfies none of the criteria of lawful self-defense. Accordingly, the action of the United States and Israel constitute a manifest violation of Article 2, a peremptory norms and a fundamental principle of international law accepted by all member states. Neither the Charter nor international law recognize internal matters of states as justification for the use of force by other states. Were this otherwise, no international legal order could endure. The rule of law would be replaced by the rule of force. 2. In responding to aggression and large-scale war, the Islamic Republic of Iran is exercising its inherent and lawful right of self-defense under Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations. The armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran are utilizing all the necessary defensive capabilities and means to confront this criminal aggression and deter the hostile acts. Consequently, all bases, facilities, and assets of the hostile forces in the region shall be regarded as legitimate military objective within the framework of Iran's lawful exercise of self-defense. Iran will continue to exercise its right of self-defense decisively and without hesitation until the aggression ceases in full and unequivocal terms. 3. Iran remains firmly committed to respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of its neighboring countries. Under no circumstances will we target the sovereignty, people, or interests of our neighboring countries in the Persian Gulf. Our legitimate response have been directed solely and exclusively at the bases and assets of the hostile government of the United States that operate beyond the control of the host states. Priority has been given to the targets that diminish the aggressor capability and capacity to continue its malign actions. We had previously and formally conveyed this warning to the Secretary General and the Security Council. 4. Despite continuous U.S. hostile policy, we were sincerely and seriously pursuing the path of diplomacy and dialogue to reach a just, fair, and sustainable agreement. Yet, for the second time in the midst of the negotiation, the United States betrayed diplomacy and resorted to force and launched an attack against my country in blatant violation of Charter of the United Nations, presently interfering in Iran's internal affairs. They are even calling on the people to riot against their own government. The recent record of the United States toward Iran is equally clear. Since January 2025, the U.S. administration reinstated the hostile approach, including the policy of so-called maximum pressure and economic strangulation through sweeping sanctions. The General Assembly has repeatedly voted by overwhelming majorities against such unilateral coercive measures. The objective of these illegal measures has been transparent, unconditional surrender. Despite repeated warning by Iran to the Secretary General and the Council regarding serious violation of the Charter by a permanent member, the Council has regrettably failed to discharge its primary responsibility, allowing the erosion of the rule of law in favor of the rule of force. 5. Just as the Israeli regime succeeded in dragging the United States into the quagmire of war with Iran, the United States, in turn, is deliberately seeking to to expand the scope of the conflict by exploiting spaces in the Persian Gulf region. The hostile US government dream of swallowing Iran and forcing the Islamic Republic of Iran into submission will never be realized. This war, before being a contest of military equipment and advanced technologies, is a battle of wills. And in that battle, the Islamic Republic of Iran will prevail. Furthermore, the Islamic Republic of Iran has repeatedly affirmed its commitment to diplomacy and negotiation. However, it will never submit to pressure, coercion, or force. Diplomacy has rules and principles. It cannot coexist with aggression. 6. The duty of Council members is to defend international law and specifically the Charter. They are not called upon to judge the political system of states, nor to determine whether military aggression or economic siege leads to freedom or domination. Expression of concerns and empty condemnation are not sufficient. The Council must act pursuant to the regime have committed an act of aggression and demand the immediate cessation of its unlawful use of force, including any explicit or implicit threats against Iran, and require binding assurance of non-repetition. Affirm that the United States and Israeli regime bear full international responsibility for all materials and moral damage inflicted upon the infrastructure and